We all know the story by now. Chelsea were Champions League winners and world champions, but just 2 years later sit deep in mid-table with
Brighton and Fulham and them, man.
Things like recruitment, overspending and managerial sackings have destroyed the club, and there's one name that takes all the blame.
Todd Boehly.
Todd Boehly.
Meatloaf Boehly. I would do anything for pound notes.
But what if I told you there was someone in the shadows the whole time and pulling the strings who plotted Chelsea's decline? So, who really is to blame for Chelsea's downfall? To answer this, we have to go all the way back to 2022. When Roman Abramovich was forced to sell Chelsea, the US bank Rain Group oversaw the club's sale. There were more than 250 parties interested in the club, including Jim Ratcliffe, who's recently bought a stake in Man United, the Ricketts family, and Chairman Wontumi.
Are you really serious about this?
Do you see me as a joke person?
Rain Group made it clear that they weren't just looking for the highest bidder, but the group who had the best interest for the club. And eventually, the winning bid was from a consortium of Clearlake Capital, Hans-Jörg Wyss and Todd Boehly. The American became the spokesperson for the ownership and upon winning the bid said this: "Our vision as owners is clear. We want to make fans proud. Along with our commitment to developing the youth squad and acquiring the best talent, our plan of action is to invest in the club for the long term and build on Chelsea's remarkable history of success." It seemed like he was saying all the right things, and naturally, Boehly was painted as the leader of the ownership. But was this really true? According to The Telegraph, Boehly owns just under 13% of stakes at the club, which is the same as Hans-Jörg Wyss and Mark Walter. The remaining 61.5% is all owned by Clearlake Capital, who are managed by Jose Feliciano and Behdad Eghbali. But why is this important? There are some key differences between Boehly's ownership and Clearlake. Boehly's stake is completely funded with his own money, a bit like a former Chelsea owner. With Feliciano and Eghbali, their personal stakes are minuscule within Clearlake's 61.5% fund that they manage. And why does this matter? This paragraph sums it up the best. Boehly is often said to speak to his business associates about the next 20 plus years at Chelsea, whilst external experts feel Eghbali and Feliciano have more pressure on them to achieve quick results from investors. The main priority for the majority owners at Chelsea isn't long-term success on the pitch, but quick profits for investors. And this is where we meet the real culprit. While Feliciano is mostly silent when it comes to the club, the man who's been leading Chelsea's failing strategy is Behdad Eghbali. The crazy thing about Chelsea's downfall is that Eghbali told us all exactly how he planned it in 2022. Listen to what he said in an interview with Portico.
We'll talk about it, but we thought Chelsea was frankly an asset, a business that in our view was not terribly well managed on the football side, on the soccer side, sporting side, or the commercial side. So
whoa, that's a bit of a mad thing to say about the most successful English club in the 21st century, right? But why did he feel that way? In the same interview, he said this: "We looked at it and we think European sports is probably 20 years behind US sports in terms of sophistication on the commercial side and sophistication on the data side. To understand what he means, we have to understand the nature of American sports. In leagues like the NBA and MLB, data and advanced metrics are crucial for assessing player value and team dynamics. Teams like the Houston Rockets have completely rebuilt their team using metrics like player efficiency rating and true shooting percentage to increase their three-point shooting stats. Data also influences trades and transfers. In baseball, the Oakland Athletics have used the Moneyball strategy, focusing on underlying metrics to find undervalued players for lower fees. Salary caps are also prominent in leagues like the NFL and NBA, imposed to maintain parity between teams. Finally, minor league systems for player development is all over American sports. One of the world's best baseball players, Ronald Acuna Jr., was signed by the Atlanta Braves as a 16-year-old and sent to clubs owned by or affiliated to the Braves till the time he was ready to play for the first team. But what does all of this have to do with Chelsea? Well, multi-club ownership and data-driven scouting are all things Eghbali mentioned in that initial interview, suggesting that he wants to replicate American sporting structures at Chelsea. When you think of these things, ownership of different clubs to develop players, and data-driven squad decisions, which clubs do you think of? Well, first, there's the Red Bull clubs. Their network of football teams in Brazil, America, and Austria are all used to develop players with the ultimate aim of providing players for their German club, RB Leipzig. An example of this is Benjamin Sesko, who signed for Leipzig after playing in Salzburg, just like Naby Keita and Upamecano. Some players are sold earlier in the journey, like Erling Haaland, who was picked up by RB Salzburg for 8 million and sold to Dortmund for 20 million in just 18 months, having had his status elevated from a Norwegian novice in Molde to a Champions League prodigy at Salzburg. And when it comes to data-driven scouting, there's one English club best known for this, who have embarrassed Chelsea at every turn since Clearlake's takeover.
We hired a coach away from Brighton. We think they're one of the best run teams in the Premier League.
These guys love Brighton. From signing players and managers for hundreds of millions, the club have tried to rip off the Brighton model by picking up coaches and recruitment staff that have built Brighton's team. See, Chelsea are called out by the media by the drastic number of signings they've made, but this follows Brighton's model, who have signed over 60 players since the 16-17 season. Brighton also utilise a multi-club system, having sent prospects like Mitoma to develop at Union SG, a club which is majority owned by Brighton owner Tony Bloom. The issue with blindly following this is that Brighton's model has been developed over time since Tony Bloom took over the club in 2009, which allowed him to establish relationships to sustainably send players out on loan. Meanwhile, Chelsea have tried to implement everything, the stockpiling of players, the purchase of affiliate clubs, and the rebuild of a whole new starting 11, all in the space of 2 years. With so many moving parts, how can you expect the club to develop with no real stability? However, the even bigger issue is that we're following the models for clubs who are known for selling their best players. There's a glass ceiling on the success of clubs like Brighton and RB Leipzig because as soon as their players attract the interest of big clubs, they're sold, meaning they never have the stability to build a side capable of winning trophies. Does that mean that Cole Palmer will be sold as soon as a bid comes in? Is that why we have so many left-footed right wingers at the club for when he eventually moves on? That's the scary truth about this model. A lot of people say you can't win anything with kids, but there's one elite club specifically that has so many wonder kids in the starting lineup and still impacting the biggest stages of European football. Real Madrid. Vinicius, Rodrigo, Bellingham, Camavinga, Tchouaméni, even Valverde is like 25 and he's been around for ages. The reason they've all excelled so much is because of Madrid's succession plans. Camavinga and Tchouaméni have been honing their craft, playing with Modric and Kroos for years. Vinicius was so raw when he started, but was able to learn from Hazard and Benzema, and though that was a bit rough at times,
"He is playing trash, brother. Don't play with him on my mother's life. He's playing against us."
he was able to develop by making mistakes with the cushion of having experienced leaders behind him with the know-how of winning big games. The biggest issue with Chelsea on the pitch right now is the lack of those leaders. Why doesn't Caicedo have an N'Golo Kante to learn from? Don't you think there would be less pressure on Enzo if Jorginho could come into the side and see out games? The reason they're not here is due to Eghbali's insistence on capping wages. And though this might seem like it's to meet financial fair play, surely the better decision is not to spend £500 million on players who might not even touch the first team. The reason for Chelsea's downfall isn't just because of signing all these young players, but because the focus hasn't been on player development, but rather player farming, or simply just signing as many high potential players in the hope of flipping them for profits. Even in that realm, we've seen so many failed loans and players returning to the club with their values lowered. But then again, it makes sense as the culture of the club is one that's based on profits and not success. And don't think Boehly's free from guilt either. As chairman of the club, he earns £20 million a year in a role that isn't earned through merit, but just something that will be passed to different members of the ownership as the years progress. The owners have destroyed the team's standards on the pitch and aren't doing well commercially, leaving us without shirt sponsors to start the season and relying on loopholes to appear financially stable. They've hired the managers and the directors who have made us uncompetitive and even replaced our medical team, leading to our injury crisis. But none of this matters, and as long as we keep supporting the club, the owners will profit, the players will leave for even bigger clubs or earn millions guaranteed over the next 7 to 8 years, and ultimately, it'll be the fans who suffer as Chelsea slowly drown into mid-table irrelevance.